Welcome back to another episode of the Field of 68's Offseason Grades series. And today, Rob Doster has allowed me to step into his world, the Big East, where we will be talking about Marquette. Rob, interesting offseason for these guys. They were a great team last season, and they return a lot of the reasons they were a great team. Tyler Kolek is back. Cam Jones is back. Oso is back in the front court. The big name they lose, everybody loved him. Omax. Beyond that, they had a trio of transfers out, but none of them averaged more than 1.3 points per game last season. Rob, from a general sense, was this a good offseason for the Golden Eagles?
I don't think it could have been any better, all things considered. Yes, they lost Omax Prosper. That is a big loss, but people kind of finally started waking up to just how good that dude was. And once NBA teams realized how good he was, I think that's when his stock went from being a potential second round pick to being the number 24 pick in the NBA draft. But beyond that, I mean, you're getting back a first team All-American and the Big East Player of the Year in Tyler Kolek. You're getting back a guy that was all Big East in Cam Jones. You're getting back a guy in Oso Ighodaro who has a chance to be an NBA player in his own right. And you didn't lose any of the kind of bench rotation pieces. It's actually pretty incredible when you look at it. Not a single player from Marquette's rotation transferred out of the program. Shaka didn't go into the transfer portal and bring a single player in out of the portal. And it's the second straight year he didn't bring anybody that was a Division I transfer in. Last year, they brought in Zach Reitzel, who was an NAIA National Player of the Year, but that was it. The kid averaged I think he played 8 games before he got hurt. So it's basically the same roster that you have from a year ago. And that is not something that is normal. It is not something that is typical. And to a point, look, Greg, we love the portal, right? We love the player transactions. We love the content. We love the talking points. At the end of the day, the biggest wins a lot of times that you can have are keeping the same players on your roster and keeping that continuity. And that is exactly what Marquette did this offseason.
So I was going to ask you, do you like that? I feel like it's easy to step back and say, obviously it's good. They bring nearly everybody back and the team was awesome. Objectively, that's a good offseason. You are a fan of a program, Rob, that brought in some incredible transfers last season that played incredibly in their roles to win you a national championship. I don't look at Marquette's roster. No offense, Golden Eagles fans. I don't look at Marquette's roster, given the way their NCAA tournament run ended last season, and see national championship future without some sort of improvement. Obviously, guys are going to improve, but do you think this was a missed opportunity that Shaka didn't go get somebody to bolster this group, or are you really all in your heart of hearts on just run it back with that team?
It hurts not having Omax because I think what he provided as a defensive stopper, as an athletic wing, as somebody that was kind of vital to this whole idea that we're going to switch everything. We're going to put him and Stevie Mitchell on your 2 best players, and then we're just going to figure out everything else that we do defensively. I don't think that you're going to necessarily be able to do that, but I think with the way that Shaka runs his program and with the fact that he has 3 guys, in my opinion, that came off the bench that are good enough to be able to step into starters minutes. If Omax is back, and if you bring in a transfer, then I don't think that you get those guys. So, or that you necessarily keep those guys. So if the decision is, all right, let's go out and try to upgrade on, let's say, David Joplin, right? And bring in someone that's better at the 4. Well, then you don't really get to see what David Joplin can be when he gets a chance to, instead of playing 20 minutes where he averaged 9 points a game. What happens if he's playing 30 minutes? Does he become a 15 point per game guy? Can he become a go-to offensive weapon? And it allows other players to kind of step up into bigger roles. So I get what you're saying. And I do think that there is an argument to be made that you can fill gaps by going into the transfer portal. Marquette wouldn't be the kind of team trying to rebuild a roster. It's like you're saying, okay, just take UConn for this year. You mentioned them, right? They didn't have any shooting. They went out and they got Cam Spencer, right? Well, the argument that I think Shaka would make is that when they're looking to fill a defensive role, they have Chase Ross, who is ready to play more minutes. If you're looking to fill a scorer's role, you have David Joplin, who's ready to play more minutes. If you need another floor spacing 5, you got Ben Gold, who Shaka said today to me, we think he is better than he thinks he is. So I totally get your point. I just think
that's scary. That's a very scary quote.
Yeah. I think that to answer your question, I think that you need to be able to do that if you don't believe you already have those pieces in your program. And I think Shaka believes he has those pieces in his program.
Okay. Yeah. In a way, I think this is not that like there is such thing as a make or break year for Shaka Smart, but I feel like this is going to be an important one when we look back 20 years from now at the resume of Shaka Smart. We're going to be like, oh, he doubled down on his guys with this group from a team that was awesome the year before. And depending on how this ends, both in the NCAA tournament and the regular season, I think it's going to be an interesting data point. I have a feeling our X factor here is the same. Rob, who's your X factor for Marquette next year?
It's whoever steps into the Omax role, right? Like who can kind of step up and be that guy. And I think it's probably going to end up being David Joplin. I know what he can be offensively. I know that he is a little better defensively than he gets the credit for. And I think that we're going to see him be like with more minutes, be like him and Cam Jones, I think are both going to average around 15 or 16 points per game. I expect that to be what it ends up being. And I think we're going to see a much more talented offensive group. Like just the way that they can space the floor, the way that they have, like also Iguodala to me is one of the most fascinating players in the sport. When they got there, he played 38 minutes his freshman season. He almost transferred out when everybody else was transferring out when Shaka got the job, and he came back, and I think he's going to play in the NBA at some point. I don't know if he'll be a draft pick, but guys that can pass the way he can pass with the versatility he has defensively just tend to find a way to stick in the league. So, no, but to me, like the X factor is, if you don't want to go with the player and just kind of like what will determine how good Marquette ends up being, it's who improves. Like, where do you take the leap? Is Cam Jones more than just a guy that's a bucket getter? Does he get a little bit better defensively? Does he get a little bit better as a creator? Is he a little bit more efficient as a scorer? You know, for a guy whose reputation is as a shooter, shooting 36% from three and 66% from the free throw line isn't great. How much better does he get there? How much more efficient? So, you know, David Joplin taking a step forward. Is Stevie Mitchell more of an offensive weapon than he was the last couple of years? What does Chase Ross turn into now that Sean Jones is healthy? Is he a guy that is going to be able to be more than just kind of like an energetic body off the bench? And Ben Gold, like, you got a 6'11" dude that dunks on people and makes threes. Like, what does he develop into? Like, to me, that will determine how good they are, is the leap that a lot of the players will make now that they're playing larger roles. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Ben Gold, who doesn't know how good he is. I love that quote. I'm never going to be able to think of him any other way from now on. My X factor by far is David Joplin, and I think you're right. I think there is a lot more production there than we saw last year. We certainly saw flashes of a great player. I thought he shot the three really well last season, almost 5 attempts in 19 minutes per game, 40% from there. Like, what does that look like when he's suddenly a 30-minute guy and he's playing more alongside the deadly backcourt when he has to step up? I do think you're right. I think he has really high points per game potential. Points per game aren't everything, but somebody's got to fill the Omax role, and it's certainly Joplin on paper to me right now. The other thing I would just add, you talked about a leap, like who can make the leap, and the guys that are stepping into bigger roles have the most obvious leaps they can make. I am curious if Tyler Kolek has a next level. And that sounds crazy because he won a lot of awards last season, rightfully so. I forget where we had him. I think we had him first team All-American as our point guard, best point guard in the country, essentially, when we voted from field of 68. And that's there. I mean, he's going to do what he does, right? He's going to be one of the best, if not the best, assist guys in the entire country, a floor general type who's super efficient, all of that. I'm curious if there's a jump from that to like, maybe this guy's the best player in college basketball. And I know Zach Edey's back. Zach Edey is the best player in college basketball. Let's not kid ourselves. But if Zach Edey wasn't here, would that opportunity be there for Kolek? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think, like, in order for Marquette to really shift from a team that I think, oh, that's a really good team, I'm not overly scared of them in March, it's going to require Kolek to be the guy that makes that jump to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much better you can get than first team All-American, but I do think he's going to be awesome again. And if you want to talk about expectations, which is probably the next place that we're going here, like I I think their expectations is win the Big East regular season title, win the Big East tournament. If you're setting goals, it's, make the second weekend, get out of the first weekend of the tournament, but they're going to end up being a preseason top 5 team, and justifiably so. They won the Big East regular season and the Big East tournament this past season. If you don't win a Big East title, one of those two this year, then I think that you should be disappointed. Fun fact, that was actually the first regular season title that Shaka Smart has won in his entire college basketball coaching career. So I think that's what the expectation for this group should be. And when you have the success that they had last year, you should know that you're going to go into the next season and people are going to hold you to that high of a standard, right? You've already shown that you could do it, and you bring everybody back, and all the pieces are just going to get better. So I don't think that losing Omax should really impact the way that we view this team. It hurts, but it shouldn't impact the way that we view this team. They got guys that are ready, man. Next man up. That's what Marquette does.
Yeah, this is the second time I'm referencing Purdue in this video, but I actually think it's a very interesting parallel because to me, they're the two best teams in the country that just said, let's run it back with our guys for the most part. And Purdue did add a few players in the portal, but they're not expected to be top 7, 8 guys on that team. I think what it's going to come down to, if you want my honest answer, what's the expectation? The expectation is that this team gets Shaka back to the second weekend for the first time in 13 years. Mm-hmm. Or however many years it's been. Let's just call it what it is. And I said the same thing in the Purdue video, which I don't know if that's out by the time people see this or not, but that team could go undefeated in the regular season. If they don't make a run in the tournament, all of a sudden, that's what they're defined by at this point. And that's kind of the pattern Shaka's gotten himself into. On paper, this team is Final Four good. They are. If we get the jumps from the guys, Joplin, Mitchell, that we talked about, there's no reason this team is not one of the best teams in the country. All right, let's give them a grade, Rob. What is your offseason grade for Marquette?
I am going to give them an A because they brought everybody back. I know they didn't go out and get anyone. I don't know. They didn't fill any gaps. But as our favorite burner, Trilly Donovan, likes to say, sometimes the best gets are the ones that are already on your roster, and they brought everybody back. And I know losing Omax hurts. I don't know what Marquette can do to control that. At the end of the day, long-term, big picture, if you want your program to succeed, you got to get guys that are pros, and you got to show that you could turn good players into great players and get them off to the NBA to make those guaranteed millions, which is what Omax Prosper is going to end up making. I don't know how. The only way that this could have been better for Shaka Smart this offseason was if something that he had no control over happened, and that was people kept sleeping on Omax Prosper. They didn't. They finally woke up. They finally realized how good that he was and he is. That's probably going to end up happening to Oso Ighodaro after this season. But until then, I think that Marquette is in a great situation to repeat as Big East champions.
So I'm the notorious harsh grader here. Ask Illinois fans about that if you want more details. I am going to give them an A-. That's as low as I can go for Marquette. Obviously, you hit on it. They bring everybody back for the most part. It's important. They're good. They already were good. They're going to be good again. Why I'm going to the minus here? 2 reasons. I do think they could have added just one guy that would have rounded this out a little bit more. And where I would like to see that on the roster, honestly, is just a backup big. We keep talking Ben Gold. I don't necessarily expect huge things from Ben Gold, even if the coaching staff does. I think a veteran proven big would provide a little insurance, because I think they're a little thin if Oso goes down now that Omax is actually out as his running mate. And 2, they have a nice class, Rob. They don't have any instant impact guys coming in from the freshman class, in my opinion. If they did, then I think this is an A+. They just ran it back. Instead, I think it could be viewed as a missed opportunity that they didn't get somebody if their season ends where it has the last decade for Shaka Smart.
To put a little of context in on that, they went out and they got guys they knew were going to be development guys, because they don't really I don't see where you bring in an ad right now. I get what you're saying. I totally understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily disagree with it. It's just, if you're going to ask the people on the Marquette staff, why didn't you do what you are inferring to? It's because they're betting on the guys that they have on the roster and they think that they're good enough. So time will tell, but this is going to end up being a top 10 team this season. And I'll tell you what, man, college basketball is better when Marquette's good. It just is.
Oh, of course, best uniforms in the game. And I think a lot of people would like to see Shaka get back to that pinnacle. This team will be talented enough to do so. We'll see what happens. For Rob Doster, I'm Greg Waddell. You can watch the entire series of our offseason grades on the Field of 68 YouTube channel. Go over there, click subscribe while you're at it, and we'll see you next time.
Our partner for today's episode is Athletic Greens. I started taking AG1 during the college basketball season, and I loved the impact that it had on my energy levels. I'm a big coffee in the morning guy, but by the time that the afternoon would hit, I needed another boost. AG1 helped me tremendously, especially on those days when I didn't want to get up off the couch and go hit the gym. Their tagline is AG1 is comprehensive health and the power of habit in one. And man, that could not be more true. It's nearly impossible to eat and drink in a healthy manner in the month of February and the month of March when you are in my business. And AG1 was exactly the supplement that I needed to improve my gut health and cover my nutritional basis for the day. I've continued that into April. I've continued that into May, and I'm going to continue that the rest of the summer. All I have to do is mix a scoop of AG1 with some water or maybe add it into a smoothie, and I'm ready to go. Do it after lunch, and you'll be ready to go for the rest of the day. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/field68. That's field 68 FIELD, the number 6, the number 8, and you can get yours now. So check it out and help support this show. Thanks.